Welcome to the Eddie Tunick Show. My name is Eddie Tunick, and my special guest today is a very talented gentleman from Long Island, New York City, who drove all the way up to Princeton, New Jersey, to be interviewed by me today at Princeton University. His name is Anthony Dichiara. Welcome to the show, Anthony.
Thanks, Eddie. I appreciate you having me on. I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you here. It's nice to have a talented guy like you. Let me tell our listening audience a little bit about you, and then we'll get into a little more detail. You've turned your passion for writing, drawing, and movies into a career. You own an ad agency, a TV production company. You write a daily sci-fi column for The Examiner in San Francisco? They're in San Francisco? Okay. You've written 2 novels, The Human Factor and The Grinning Man, and you're currently seeking a publisher for 2 children's books that you wrote and illustrated. You're working with a production company to pitch some TV show ideas, and we're going to talk about that and Clint Eastwood, who might be listening in. Anthony has something you might be interested in, Clint. We'll get to that in a few minutes.
Hopefully.
But let's talk a little bit about your passion for writing and movies and all that, because I mean, what do you do full time? The ad agency or what?
Yeah, basically the full-time job is the ad agency, and we're more of a multimedia company, so it's not just advertising like print ads and TV. It's also web and what they call now branded entertainment. Branded entertainment is coming up with TV concepts that you can attach to a client. So say you have Kellogg's or Procter & Gamble or Nike as a client. Not only do you do ads for them, you wind up designing and creating a TV show that they could sponsor and get attached to, and there's a level of control that they have, because sponsors obviously don't want to back a show that might have some kind of controversy or have an actor that goes, crazy and has any public turn on them, or like Charlie Sheen's Meltdown. Right. It's not good if you're if you want to promote yourself as a family company, an advertiser, to have
Right.
less control. So if you could control a show and tailor it for a client, that's what they call branded entertainment. So that's more of what I'm.
But you handle all kinds of businesses
All
as far
kind-
as advertising?
Yeah. Any kind, full service agency.
Computer business, sales company?
Any kind of business.
Okay, I heard a lot of good things about your company. That's one of the
appreciate
reasons you're here. So anybody out there that has a business that's looking for a really, really good advertising agency, I highly recommend this man. I mean,
Thank you.
yeah, really, I checked you
Appreciate
out,
that.
and that's one of the reasons you're here today. But besides the advertising agency, I mean, you're writing books and films, and tell me about the books you're writing here. 2 novels.
2 novels, The Human Factor, The Grinning Man. The Human Factor is, I guess, I like to call it a human adventure story that happens to be set in the future. Because when you say sci-fi, people think cheesy 50s B-movie kind of thing, but it's more of it's kind of a nod to those, but it's also kind of a nod to The Twilight Zone, which was a show I loved.
Rod Sterling.
Yeah,
Rod
Sterling. I loved it, and I loved especially the twist endings. So I tried to incorporate that. So I guess you could call it a Tom Clancy kind of thriller that's kind of set in the future, and has a Twilight Zone kind of ending. That's The Human Factor.
That's The Human Factor.
The Grinning Man is a horror thriller. So I didn't want to be a one-trick pony and just keep doing sci-fi or something like that. So, I always like to just keep fresh and keep doing different things.
Did you have these books published yet? Do you have a publisher?
Yeah, they're published. You can get them on Amazon.com, and I have other books, other stories that I want to get a bigger publisher.
Okay.
And
So if people want to order these books, what
they
do
could
do?
just go. They could just go to Amazon.com and order them. Yeah.
Just type in the name of the book.
Just type in the name of the book and
The Human Factor.
The Human Factor.
The Grinning Man.
The Grinning Man.
Okay. Now, Tell me about the two children's books.
Well, I'm also an illustrator, and that's part of the thing, you know, when you were discussing turning your passion into, you know, something that you make a living off of. I started out in finance. I worked for, you know, Fortune 500 companies.
Really?
And I hated it. I was bored to death. And I said, well, you know, I have all this background, all this training. You know, they were paying for college at the time, so it was just like getting tuition reimbursement. So I didn't want to screw that up. And I said, well, yeah, but I really hate finance and this kind of business. So I decided, well, you know what? Advertising is a business. Mm-hmm. You have to have a business background, but you know, there's another side to advertising, the creative side, which you write, you design ads, you design TV commercials and things like that. So I said, well, I could combine everything into one industry. So I picked advertising, and the way I got into writing novels is I also had a passion for film. I love film. I'm a big film buff, and I had submitted a screenplay to the Long Island Film Festival, and I won third place.
Did you?
Yeah. And an agent contacted me and said, do you mind if I represent you and send this out? So I said, knock yourself out, go ahead. So he did, and instead of getting the regular form letters that you usually get, thanks but no thanks, you know, and he sent them out to all the big, you know, Paramount, DreamWorks, you name it. We started getting back letters saying, wow, we really love this, but horror is not really in right now. This was in the late 80s, early 90s. And why don't you turn this into a novel? And I said, well, okay, you know, who has the time to write a novel? You know, that's why I wrote a screenplay, because I could bang it out in a few weeks and I'm done and that's it. So, and the more I thought about it, the more I said, well, you know what, maybe they got something there. Maybe I will. So it was well over 10 years later before I decided, all right, maybe I have the time, I can sit down and really start working on a novel. And, you know, oddly enough, I didn't make a novel out of the screenplay I wrote because I had this other idea. So that's how I wrote The Human Factor. And then people said, hey, you're going to do a sequel. And I really didn't want to do a sequel. So I decided to write The Grinning Man because of an experience my sister had seeing this entity that I didn't know anything about, she didn't know anything about. And she had seen this thing. And years later, I was reading a book about strange phenomena, and I'm reading about this grinning man, and I'm saying, my God, this is what my sister